After a separation or divorce, the way you communicate with your former spouse, your co-parent, is absolutely critical, especially when your children are either present or they can overhear you. Today, I'm talking about what really is a deeply damaging behavior that can just plague some post-separation families, some high-conflict co-parents, and that is demeaning, name-calling, disrespecting, any negative behavior about the other parent in front of the kids. Now, this isn't just about being polite. It's about protecting your child's emotional well-being and their fundamental sense of self. I'm Dr. Greg Kovacs, and today I'll explain why this seemingly small act can have such a profound and lasting negative consequence for your children. Welcome back to my series on the top co-parenting mistakes. First, and this is crucial, name-calling and demeaning damages your child's sense of self and their identity. It's something I see so darn often, it drives me insane. Children are a product of both parents, genetically and emotionally. So when one parent demeans the other, calling them stupid, irresponsible, worthless, a child internalizes that criticism. And that child might think, hey, if half of me comes from that bad person, then half must be bad, right? But kids, they just don't have a great ability to understand a parent's motivation for saying those really ugly things. Since children's sense of self-worth is so intertwined with their parents, attacks on one parent, it just shakes the foundational sense of who they are. Second, children have an innate fundamental need to love both parents. When you attack your child's other parent, you force your child into this really nasty loyalty bind where they might feel pressured to choose which parent they're going to support. And in my work with kids of high conflict co-parents in particular, when I meet with kids alone and say something like, you're right in the middle, aren't you? You seem to be feeling like you have to choose whether you're going to side with mom or with dad, and I just can't imagine how hard that must be for you. Even if that child has never teared up in front of me before, if nothing else has brought up tears in their eyes, that's likely going to do it. It happens almost every time. Kids finally feel heard, they feel understood. And I'm not being dramatic here, I promise I'm not. But when kids hear a parent demean the other parent, call them names, criticize them, it is emotionally agonizing for kids. It can make them feel guilty for loving the bad parent or guilty for betraying the parent who is saying these horrible things. So either they go along with it or they support the parent that's calling names or they support the other parent and they just don't know which way to turn. Demeaning and name-calling their other parent, it's an immense stressor for kids. It creates this internal conflict and it's just something that kids shouldn't have to deal with at any point, but in particular after what probably was a really tough year of transition or more after that divorce. Third, name-calling and demeaning, it undermines a child's relationship with the targeted parent, and it undermines the targeted parent's authority. And unfortunately, that's often one of the goals of the critical parent, to let that child know how horrible of a person this other parent is, and to push that other parent out of their child's life. And in my experience, more often than not, the parent that's being targeted with these comments is actually a loving, supportive parent who's been a positive influence on that child's life. And that child feels that. They know that this parent feels good to them, is comforting to them, is a support to them, except now they've got somebody else, their other parent, who they likely trust to the moon and back, telling them that those behaviors in which that child finds comfort and security are not behaviors that the child should appreciate. And that child should push that parent out of their life. Guys, that's confusing as hell for a child. And it's so difficult for a child to resolve that discrepancy, to pull themselves out of that bind, it's really hard, if not impossible, for that child to do that. So constant negative remarks can simply poison a child's perception of their other parent, even if their own experiences are positive of that parent. And that can cause a child to reject or develop animosity toward a loving and capable parent. And here's the thing, the demeaning parent intends to put distance between their child and their other parent. It actually undermines both parents' authority, and it undermines the relationship that child has with both parents. If a child chooses one parent, the other parent's authority is quite likely going to be diminished in that child's eyes. That makes co-parenting even more difficult. And when parents aren't communicating directly, or they're actively undermining each other, children see them as disunited. They're not a united team working together. And when kids realize that they can play one parent against the other, that can lead to a lack of respect for the authority of both parents. And that really becomes a problem, because now this child is just sort of floating around out there with nobody to look up to, nobody to respect. It creates a very insecure scenario for these kids. Fourth, exposing kids to name-calling and demeaning behavior, it increases their anxiety, it increases their stress. It models unhealthy relationship behaviors. Children are incredibly sensitive to parental conflict. They just cannot stand it. And when they experience disrespectful interactions between parents, it creates a tense, unsafe, emotional environment for kids. That chronic stress can create a lot of mental health and behavioral issues, anxiety, depression, sleep difficulties, physical symptoms, other behavioral issues. Kids learn to interact with others by observing their parents, right? They're watching and they're learning. And disrespectful, demeaning behavior can easily be internalized by kids. They can take it right back to their room with them and figure out that this is the way they're supposed to act toward others. So they're more likely to adopt horrible communication patterns in their own relationships if they've observed them in you. And so, yeah, that can lead to some trust and other intimacy issues later on in life. Fifth, demeaning and name-calling. It might seem to draw the child closer to the offending parent, and yeah, it probably does in some ways in the short term, but it often backfires in the long run. As kids get older, and I'm not talking adulthood, by the age of 12 or so, 12, 13, kids develop the ability to think more abstractly. They begin to use deductive logic, and they begin to individuate. They begin to think and feel independently. And it's right around that time that kids can begin resenting, or not sort of, actually resenting the parent who put them in such a nasty position. They begin to question that parent's judgment, honesty, integrity, their character. So it will backfire. I mean, honestly, I've seen it happen again and again and again. So what should parents do instead of demeaning the other parent? Seems like a simple question, doesn't it, with a simple answer. But keep adult problems in the adult sphere. Talk about your anger and your frustration with trusted adult friends or a therapist or a support group. Don't talk about that crap with the kids. Information about finances, legal processes, specific reasons for the divorce. It's all inappropriate for kids to hear. It's a huge burden on kids. Focus on your own relationship with your child. Build a strong, loving, and positive relationship based on your own merits, not by tearing down the other parent. It just doesn't work, I promise you. Respect the other parent's role. Even if you don't like or respect your ex as a former spouse or partner, it's so important that you respect their role as your child's other parent. Co-parenting relationships function just fine, really, as a business, right? Sort of a business-like partnership. Stay focused solely on raising the kids. Keep co-parenting separate from the marital relationship, from all of those emotions that you have left over from your pre-divorce relationship. Keep all of that separate. Third, speak about the other parent in a neutral or ideally in a genuinely positive way, in positive terms. If you can't say something positive, say nothing at all. I hate that expression, it's overused, but unfortunately it's true in a lot of ways. Fourth, let your child form their own opinions. Let them have their own experiences with the other parent. Keep your negative commentary out of the equation, because I promise you, your kids are forming their own opinions about you as you demean and disrespect their other parent. Fifth, communicate directly with your co-parent. Use clear, direct communication with positive or neutral emotion. If needed, there are a lot of ways to communicate so you don't have to do it face-to-face, right? To avoid the persistently negative interaction. So, things like co-parenting apps or email or texting. Just keep it focused on child-related matters and never use your kids as messengers. All right, finally, show a united front to your kids. Stay focused on all of the important decisions that you need to make as co-parents, like schedules and school activities, medical care. Kids find so much security in two parents working together. Avoiding negativity, work together, that's where kids find their security. They don't need you to love each other. They don't need you to sleep together. They just need you to work together. It isn't just about being a better person. It's about protecting your child's fundamental right to love both parents. It's about their right to develop a healthy sense of self in a secure, safe environment. By putting your kids' well-being, your children's well-being first, you lay the foundation for their long-term emotional health and their long-term resilience.